Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with J. Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0 where I explained that joke. And back then, the purpose of the podcast was faith, family, fitness, and finances. Now we've just simplified it to making a better you. Thank you, everyone, for just your response last week. The likes, the shares, reviews. We keep going. You can see that today I've just got the angle on the just the swag wall with all the other stuff, and just what, I got started and I was like, oh, I should switch it today, and we're just going to go raw with what we got here today. We've got puzzles that I put together with the girls. Up here, this is the champagne bottle from when I did my 50 miler, autographed books, just lots of fun stuff. But what I want to talk today is I want to share with you a conversation I had with some family members the other day. So I'm re-listening to this book here, The Answer by John Assaraf, and re-listening to it, it came up as part of a conversation that I had with the Capitalize Your Best Elite monthly seminar. For my clients, we do a private seminar every month. We were talking about mindset for the second half of the year. I'm rereading this book. Astaroth is very much a focusing on things, bringing them about. He would be a law of attraction guy, further than I would go in that point. But I've been listening to his book. He shares a story about where he made a vision board about 10 years ago, opened up a box with that board in it 10 years later. And on his vision board was the actual house he was living in. And he was like, I manifested the house I'm living in. So it just got me thinking on a deep dive. And so at the table, we have 4 people, and I'm not going to say who is who. And I've prepared this conversation, and not everyone enjoys it when I do it. And I was like, hey, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in a situation where you were perfectly calm, just chilling, and then all of a sudden you start having a thought, and all of a sudden the thought causes your heart to race and you're sweating, and you've gone from peace to anxiety? And everyone's like, yes, of course. Some folks had said gone away from peace all the way to peace to a panic attack. I was like, okay. Now the opposite is true as well, right? You've been in a situation where you are heart racing and you're sweating, and but you've been able to calm yourself down. You think, okay, here's what I'm thankful for, here's what is true. It's a bit harder, but it works in the opposite direction. And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay. So in that situation, your thoughts caused something physical to happen. Your thoughts caused something physical to happen: sweating, elevated heart rate. So there's a connection there between thoughts and physical reality. And immediately someone said, well, yes, but there's a connection there. And I was like, you're correct. There's a neurological connection between the thoughts and the body. Correct. I was anticipating that. So now let me ask a separate question. Have you ever been at like the grocery store? And this is very specific for moms and women, but again, it could be for anybody. And you see someone, I was like, hey, moms, you see someone, and there's no reason, but just all of a sudden your senses are heightened. And what I mean is, you're at a grocery store and there's just a person there, and there's nothing about them, but all of a sudden your senses are heightened. Moms kind of gather the kids in a little bit, or you might feel threatened. It could be, if you're a guy, you could be like, this guy is a physical threat. And someone said, well, that's just intuition. I was like, well, what in the world is intuition then? Because there's a physical person, and it's I mean, there's a physical person, but there's something transferring from that person to you that's eliciting a response. And I would ask every mother in the crowd, do you believe in mother's intuition? And they would say yes. I was like, so somewhere in there, there's a connection again between the physical and the spiritual. And I didn't have a grand design on this, but I'm like, but there's a connection there somewhere, spiritually to physically. There's a connection. And so one person said, well, you're talking about manifesting. I was like, could be. And they're like, I 100% believe in manifesting. I was like, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, making things happen. Someone on the other side of the table said, well, that's just willpower. I was like, yes and no. I was like, that willpower is part of it, but again, that's neurologically internal. But I will say, like for me in running, that there's times where I have overcome what my physical ability is. Like, for example, when I did run the 50 miler in 12 hours, I had only run 20 miles once in that training cycle, and that training cycle include the flu. I mean, technically, there's no reason I should be able to go 50 miles in 12 hours, but I did it. And again, someone might say, well, that's just willpower. I'm like, well, what? There's a connection there between the spiritual and the mental and the physical. But then again, I've had situations where I have had thoughts about family and friends and went, there's something going on. And I've reached out to them and they were like, that is freaky. There is something going on. It's not always right, correct? But there is a connection between the spiritual and physical realm. And the question is, what is in between the two? Now, when you read stuff like The Answer and other books like that, they would just say, well, everything is energy. Every single thing is energy. Even the physical body is energy. So just the energies are lining up. Interesting thought. Possibly hard to verify that. But that's the argument from folks like Asaroff or folks within the law of attraction movement, that once energies line up, they are connected. Like, for example, when two people fall in love or they see each other and they're like, there's an instant something there and it causes a physical reaction. So that was our conversation, fun conversation. And one person at the table was just like, I just flat out don't believe in manifesting. Another person said, oh, I can't stand this conversation. Another person's like, I 100% manifest things. One person said, I don't believe in manifestation because if it was true, I've been trying for 30 years and haven't, manifested anything fair. But my thought is this is where I'm at the moment. And it's funny, I've given seminars on the law of attraction. It continues to, and I don't want to minimize that, but here's what I know. I know that there's people who walk in a room and just their magnetism is immediate. And like everyone feels them walk in the room. Or someone can walk in a room in a bad mood and it can absolutely change the atmosphere of the room. There's physical reactions, right? But I know this. I know that in the stage of life I'm getting ready to walk into, I know that my goal is to walk into every room projecting confidence, energy, and compassion. And I know that I'm going to walk in every room looking for those perceived things with people. I'm going to begin every day reminding myself of what my goals are and what I'm going to accomplish. And I'm going to live in a spiritual realm because I'm a spiritual person, and prayer is part of that. But then also, what am I anticipating to happen with each experience? We believe this a lot with children. When a child says, oh, today's going to be a terrible day at school. And we say, well, don't say that, and we're like literally telling them that how they think is going to affect their day, right? Or if they go, oh, I'm going to fail this test, like, well, don't start the test like that. I know that the approach I've taken in my running that way is when I get to the start line, I'm all like, I'm going to do well here. And I've done better at times than I've anticipated. Not always. But I know that those are the energies that I am going to bring. Now, one thing that's going to bend everyone's brain that I'm also working on is I was sharing with some folks at the table about a 20-hour week contract I just got. And they said, where are you going to get 20 hours a week? And I said, time is fungible. And they're like, what? And so I'm not even going into that concept today. 60 seconds to 60 seconds, but not everybody treats 60 seconds the same. And so we'll take up that topic. But really what you've got is just me riffing off the top of my head about a conversation at the table, law of attraction, the connection between the physical and the spiritual. And I can't wait So, friends, thanks for tuning in. As always, reach out to me if you've got a question, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week. Thanks so much.